Okay. Okay. Now that we're comfortable with the display, let's talk a little bit about how the coordinate system works on a Pygame display. Suppose that we make this window that we just made on the previous tutorial, and you want to graph something on the window. So you want to draw a circle somewhere on the window. You want to draw a circle, maybe like right here. So let's just say that I want to center my circle at that location right there. Okay. Um, and let me just make the circle just a tad bit smaller. Let me see if I can go ahead and grab the circle itself. Okay, I think. Just bear with me here for just a minute. Okay. Well, I'll just leave it like that, okay? Now, let's talk about the coordinate system that Pygame uses, because it does use a coordinate system to graph things, meaning just like you have a coordinate system like the x and y axis, and you can start at the origin and you have coordinates. One Pygame, we do the same thing. Now, the origin of the display is the top left corner, and that is location 0, 0. And in this case, I'm using a width. So right here, the width is 700, and the height is 400. Just from our previous video, that means that this is 700 pixels by 400 pixels. And let's say that I want to graph this circle. Well, to graph a circle, and I'll show you that in a minute in Python. But to graph a circle, you need a few things. But mainly what we need is the location of the circle. So the location of the center of the circle and the radius of the circle. We needed that for sure. And so right here as an example, say that I wanted to place the center right there. And the way I have it right now is such that every little square measures roughly 33 and a third pixels. That's the scale I'm using right now. So if I want to draw the circle at that location, I would have to, I guess maybe I should say that every 3 squares is 100 pixels. This is getting too crowded there. I'm just going to actually write it here. So here's my scale here is that every 3 squares, that's 100 pixels. And so right here, if I want to graph the circle at that location, first I need to specify how far to the right I need to go. So that would be 100, 200, 300, and it looks like right at 333 and a third. I'll just round to 334. So I would have to go 334 to the right. And then I would have to go 100, 200 down. But I don't put a negative 200, okay? All the coordinates here in Pygame, the display, are positive. So to the right is the positive direction, down is positive direction. And so I would have to locate the center of the circle. I'm just going to say at 334, 200. And then the radius of the circle is basically half of the width. So now that I know where I want the center to be, now the radius is basically half of kind of like how wide the circle is. So it would be about this much, which looks to me like it's just over 33. Just based on my drawing here, I was meaning to make the circle a little smaller, but I'll just say that I have a radius of 34 pixels. Okay, I'll give you one more example again to make sure that you're comfortable with how this works. So let's say that I wanted to make a circle right here. Oh, okay, I'm not quite sure why it's showing it up like that, but let me try one more time. Okay, that's a little better there. There we go. And let me center it right there. Okay, so this is a little better. And let's say, how would I draw that pink, the circle in pink? Well, I would have to go 100, every 300, every 3 squares is 100 pixels, 200, 300, 400, 500, and 600 to the right. And then I would have to go 100, 200, and 34 pixels down. So to get that center location for that circle, I would have to go 600 to the right and 234 pixels down. And the radius is just 1 square, so that is basically a radius of 34. And that's how the coordinate the coordinate system works in Pygame, or the frame of reference, where 0, 0 is the top left corner always. So now let's actually test this out and play with it so we can see what that looks like. So let me connect the laptop really quick here. There we go. And I'm giving you an example with circles, but you can do this with rectangles and many other things, obviously. So let's go in here. Now, to figure out the command to draw a circle, on the documentation, I looked up circle, and this was the first hit. So this looks good to me. Pygame.draw circle. Now, notice here that circle right there, once again, matches the name of the function here. And there's a few things that we need. We need to know where we want to draw the circle, on what surface. In this case, it would be on our window. We need to give the circle a color, the position, which is basically what I was talking about right now, and the radius. Now, width is, they mentioned if width equals 0, if the width is set to 0, then the circle will be filled. So let's go ahead and look at this by going to our code. So this is from our previous example. I'm going to come in here right before I set the color of the screen, and I'm going to draw a circle right after that. And we say pygame draw dot circle. First, I specify where. Well, I want to draw it on the window. Then I need to specify the color. Well, I'm going to make a color for the circle, and so I'll call that ball. So it's supposed to represent a ball, so ball color. I need to make that variable, by the way. I haven't made it. And then the position. So this is where we write the coordinates of where the center, or the center of where I want to center my circle. So I had one where I had, and let me just reference this. I'm going to draw this green one. So 334, 200. 334, comma 200. Then the radius, well, it was 34 is what I have. And then if I want to fill in my circle, I put a 0. Now this should update. What I do need to do before this is make this variable ball color, just like I made screen color. And I need to make the variable before I use it. So my variable needs to be made before line 16. So I'll come in here and I'll say ball color is equal to, and I'll just do a white ball for now. So that would be 255, 255, 255. Okay, let's test it. And there it is. Okay, now let me draw the other circle. Notice how it was at the, it's right almost in the center, okay? 334, 200. Let's draw this one now, which is further to the right and a little bit further down, where the only thing that changes is the location, 600, 234, and the radius. I'm using the same radius, that's okay. So I'll actually copy this same line of code, so I don't have to start from scratch. So I'm drawing another circle. I'll use the same color, so it's also going to be white. That's okay, but this is going to change. 600 to the right, 234 down. And the radius I'll keep the same, and let's fill it in. Now, if I put a 1 here, well, let's test it out. Notice how that's not filled in. That's because I put a 1 instead. So we have 2 circles now, right? But what's more important from this example is the fact that we start understanding here the coordinate frame of the window, where we say this is 0, 0. If you want to go this way, that would be the x direction. It's positive all the way up to 700 if that's the width of my window. And then if you want to go down, it's also positive. And all the way up to 400, positive 400 would be at the bottom because that's the height of my window. And we've drawn a couple of circles. Okay, so there we have it. We have, once again, a couple of circles right there. It's pretty good, right? Now, what I want at this point is to get one of my circles to move. As a matter of fact, I'll focus on just one circle here. I'll make it a little smaller so that it's not too big as compared to the screen. So I'll give it a radius of 10 pixels. I can start it there, that's fine. Now what if I want my circle to move to the right? Just move to the right. Well, what we need to do if we want our circle to move to the right is that we want to repeatedly be changing the x and the y coordinate of the center of the circle. So we want to be moving that value. So right here at the very top, I'm going to make a variable called center location, and I'll just abbreviate it so that it's not too lengthy, okay? And I'm going to actually take this right here with the parentheses and everything, and I'm going to cut it, and I'm going to put it here. And right here, I'll put center location. Now notice that this basically changes nothing besides the circle gets a little smaller because I changed its radius. But let's say I want to move it. I want it to move sideways. How would I do that? Well, we start considering looping here, because we want to basically repeat this line of code, line 19. As a matter of fact, we also want to update the screen after we make a new location. We want to keep repeating this. Now, I am gonna make a variable for the x coordinate and for the y coordinate of the center of my circle, x, 334. Y is 200. And so I'll put x here, and I'll explain why I'm doing this, x and y. So that's the location of the center of the circle. Right? Now we can do a while loop, which we are comfortable at this point doing. While, and basically I'm going to put this, so if I go to the front here and I increase the int and I can hit the tab key, all that is going to be inside my while loop. So I'm going to be recalculating the center of the circle. Oh, excuse me. Drawing the circle at the new location and then updating my screen. So what I need to do here, if I only want to move my circle to the right, so if I want my circle to move to the right, my x coordinate, the 334, has to keep increasing until it gets to the edge here of the screen. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come in and I'm going to say x starts at 334. I'm going to say center location is 334, 200. So I'm using that right there. I'm going to update my display so that I can see the circle. And then after that, I'm going to say, I'm going to increase x plus 10. Let's try 10, see how that works. And I'm going to say that I want to loop while x. Now, if you're increasing 334 by 10, so that next would be 344, 354, 364, eventually it's going to get to 700, right? Which is right at the edge of my screen. 700 is at the edge because I have a width of 700. And that's when I'm going to stop. So I'm going to say that while x is less than 700, I can put 700, but we start getting in the habit of using variables who hold that value. I have a variable up here, w, that is equal to 700. So I'm going to say while x is less than the width of my screen, which is w, I want to keep looping. Let's test it and see how this goes. Oh, okay. So that's interesting. It drew them, but it kind of just drew them all at once. We didn't get a chance here to see them being drawn. And the reason why this happens is that this looping is happening really quick. Like we don't have a chance to see these circles being drawn. Another thing that happened is that the previous circle was not erased. So it's still on there, but it did draw the circles moving to the right. Again, in my next tutorial video, I'll start talking about how we erase the previous circle that we've drawn, and then how do we slow this down so that we can see the circle being drawn, so that it can basically simulate motion of the circle, because right now we are not seeing that. But again, make sure you've coded along, and that if you have any questions that you let me know, okay? This part of the code here, line 25, is key because we're updating x. So center location is at x, y, which starts at 334, 200. Draw the circle at that location with a radius of 10. Display the circle, and then increase x by 10. So that's the x coordinate of the center. And then loop back to line 21 and check if this condition is still true. Is x still less than 700? And if it is, do it again, and do it again, and do it again, and do it again, and keep looping. And so you're basically using something that we've learned here in class to simulate a game. So on the next video, again, I'll talk a little bit about how we get rid of the previous circle and how do we slow this down so we can actually see the circle moving to resemble a game.